Story 1. The Desert Stalker. I've been a trucker for nearly 15 years now, and while I've had my fair share of strange encounters, nothing compares to what happened back in 2017. It was a quiet, moonless night as I drove through the desolation of the Mojave Desert, heading toward Arizona. My haul was forgettable, probably appliances, but what sticks with me is the feeling of being utterly alone in the void of blackness surrounding me. The road stretched endlessly ahead, swallowed by the night. My truck's dim headlights barely pierced the darkness. They'd needed fixing for months, but procrastination and a tight budget had kept it on my someday list. Out here, with no streetlights and no other cars, their dimness felt almost suffocating. Every so often, I found myself squinting into the void, trying to make out the barely there outline of the road ahead. I debated pulling over to wait for dawn, but decided against it. Time was money, and I couldn't afford the loss. So I pushed on, the eerie silence of the desert broken only by the hum of my engine and the occasional creak of my leg. Around 4:30 a.m., an hour or so before sunrise, I spotted something on the horizon. Two small, flickering lights, hazard lights, dead center in the middle of the road. Instinctively, I hit the brakes. My truck groaned to a stop, the cab trembling as my heart started pounding. As I inched closer, the scene unfolded. A newer red sedan parked directly on the double yellow lines. Passenger door swung wide open like an invitation or a warning. I'm not one to scare easily. Years of bar fights and rough situations have hardened me. But there was something deeply unsettling about this. I killed the engine, grabbed my flashlight, and climbed down. As I approached, the desert's eerie stillness seemed to close in. Even the faint clicking of the car's hazards felt deafening in the quiet void. The sedan was empty, completely empty. No driver, no passenger, no sign of struggle, nothing. I scanned the area with my flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness like a blade. But it was futile. The desert stretched infinitely in every direction, offering no answers. My unease grew. Where was the driver? Why leave the car in the middle of the road? Still, curiosity got the better of me. Against my better judgment, I checked inside the car. Keys in the ignition, but no engine running. The seats were immaculate, the back seats spotless. Whoever had been here hadn't been gone long. Then I noticed the trunk. It was locked tight, but something about it nagged at me. I went back to the ignition, retrieved the key, and returned to the trunk. It wouldn't budge. It felt jammed, as though something inside was pushing against it. By now, every nerve in my body was on edge. I was crouching by the back seat, trying to get a better look, when a deafening bang shattered the silence. A gunshot. Close. I jumped, slamming my head against the car roof. My instincts screamed at me to run, and I didn't argue. I threw the keys onto the front seat and bolted for my truck. As I climbed in, fumbling to start the engine, I heard a voice, a gravelly, menacing shout. Hey you! I turned, and there he was, a stocky man, short and broad, standing at the trunk of the sedan. His face was pale and grim, illuminated by my truck's headlights. He was holding a rusted hunting rifle in one hand and a shovel in the other. The image burned into my mind. Overalls smeared with dirt, boots scuffed from the desert terrain. He didn't look deranged, he looked desperate. He waved his arms, yelling for me to stop, but there was no way I was sticking around. I floored it, the engine roaring to life. As I pulled away, I saw him drop the shovel and sprint toward his car, his panicked face etched in my memory. For a moment, I thought I was safe. Then, in my rearview mirror, headlights appeared. The red sedan was back, tailing me like a predator. The man was relentless, honking, swerving, trying to force me off the road. My heart raced as I fumbled to call the police, relaying the bizarre encounter as best I could. For 15 agonizing minutes, he chased me. Just as he was closing in, red and blue flashing lights appeared on the horizon. Relief washed over me as the man veered off, disappearing into the desert. When the officer arrived, I explained everything. He took my statement, but made no effort to chase after the man. Instead, he reassured me they'd searched the area. Weeks passed without a call back. I never found out who that man was, what he was hiding, or why he was so desperate to stop me. To this day, I avoid nighttime desert drives. The darkness out there hides too many secrets. Enjoying the thrill? Don't let the darkness fade. Hit subscribe, like, and share to keep the chills coming. Your support keeps the horror alive. Story 2. The Signal in the Woods. I was hauling a shipment of timber through northern Oregon, where the road snaked through endless forests. It was late October, and the nights were colder than usual. The towering pines formed a suffocating wall of black on either side of the road. I usually enjoyed this solitude, but that night it felt different. The moon was obscured by thick clouds, and the only light came from my high beams as they cut through the dark. The road was quiet, almost unnaturally so. No distant animal calls, no rustling leaves, just the hum of my truck's engine. Around midnight, as I approached a sharp curve, my radio flickered. The static hissed, then fell silent. At first, I chalked it up to interference. These remote roads weren't exactly friendly to electronics. But then I noticed something strange. My dashboard lights dimmed, and my truck's headlights began to flicker. Before I could react, the engine sputtered and died. My truck coasted to a stop, and the oppressive darkness swallowed me. I tried to restart the engine, but it was useless. The battery was fine, but something was preventing the ignition from catching. Frustrated, I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out to inspect the engine. The forest was eerily quiet. My breath formed puffs of mist in the cold night air as I opened the hood and shone the light on the engine. Nothing seemed out of place, but the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. It was the kind of silence that felt wrong, as though something was waiting. Then I saw it. Through the trees, about 50 yards away, a light was flickering, pale, white, and rhythmic. It looked like an old flashlight or lantern being waved back and forth. I called out, hoping it was another driver or someone who lived nearby. "Hey, my truck broke down. I need help." The light stopped moving. It hovered almost as if it was watching me. Then slowly it began to retreat deeper into the woods. My first instinct was to follow it. Maybe it was someone leading me to help. But as I stepped closer, something about the situation began to feel off. Why hadn't they answered? Why were they walking away without saying anything? Despite the warning bells in my head, I continued, leaving the safety of my truck. The flashlight in my hand barely pierced the thick forest. The light ahead kept flickering, leading me farther and farther away from the road. After what felt like 15 minutes of walking, the light disappeared. I stopped, the silence pressing down on me like a weight. Then I noticed something even stranger. The trees around me were covered in claw marks. Deep, jagged gashes tore through the bark as though something massive had sharpened its talons. My heart pounded as I scanned the area with my flashlight. That's when I heard it, a low growl, guttural and primal, echoing from behind me. I spun around, and my light caught a pair of eyes reflecting in the darkness. They were too high off the ground to be a wolf or bear, and their unblinking stare was filled with malice. A massive silhouette shifted between the trees, its form too large and unnatural to belong to any animal I'd ever seen. Panic surged through me, and I bolted back toward the road. Branches whipped at my face and arms as I ran, the growls growing louder and closer. I didn't dare look back, convinced that if I did, I'd see whatever monstrosity was chasing me. When I finally reached my truck, I slammed the door shut and locked it. My hands shook as I tried the ignition again, and to my shock, the engine roared to life. I didn't wait to question it. I floored the gas pedal, leaving the forest and whatever was in it far behind. To this day, I avoid driving through that stretch of road. I never found out who or what was holding that light. But sometimes, late at night, I wonder, was it leading me to safety or straight into a trap? Story 3. The hitchhiker. The unwritten rule of trucking is simple. Never pick up hitchhikers. It's not about being cold-hearted. It's about survival. Yet one rainy night outside of Tennessee, I broke that rule. The rain was relentless, pounding against my windshield as my ride struggled to keep up. Visibility was terrible, and I was behind schedule. The road was empty, and the only sound was the rhythmic drum of the rain. That's when I saw him. A man stood on the shoulder of the road, drenched to the bone. He waved desperately, his form barely visible in the storm. Against my better judgment, I slowed down. He approached cautiously, his face pale and gaunt under the dim glow of my cabin light. He wore a tattered jacket and jeans, both soaked through. "Thanks for stopping," he said, his voice hoarse. "My car broke down a few miles back. Can you take me to the nearest gas station?" Something about him felt off, but the rain was coming down harder, and I couldn't bring myself to leave him there. I nodded, motioning for him to climb in. He barely spoke as we drove, staring out the window with an intensity that made me uneasy. When I asked about his car, he gave vague answers, avoiding eye contact. About 15 minutes into the drive, I noticed something strange in my side mirror. Another figure was standing on the shoulder of the road, far behind us. They were motionless, illuminated briefly by my taillights before fading into the rain. A chill ran down my spine. "Did you see that?" I asked, glancing at my passenger. He didn't respond. When I turned back to the road, he was staring at me, his eyes wide and hollow. "You should have kept driving," he whispered. Before I could react, the engine sputtered and died. The truck coasted to a stop, the rain hammering against the cab. I turned to confront him, but the seat was empty. The door hadn't opened, and there were no wet footprints on the floor. He was just gone. I sat there, paralyzed, until the engine roared back to life on its own. I didn't question it. I floored the gas and didn't stop until I reached the next town. That night, I learned to never break the rules. Some hitchhikers aren't looking for a ride. They're looking for something else entirely.